Sabbath.
Good afternoon.
Recently, my husband and I, we've started getting interested in watching documentary programs on the TV. And one of the programs that we came across was If You Don't Pay, We'll Take It Away. I don't know if any of you has come across that program. The passage that Raquel had just read talks of, it's a similar to that program I'm talking about, but the way they used to do by then when you owed somebody and the way they're doing now is different. So that program I'm talking about, it's like you see people getting credit online or getting loans to buy cars or anything, and then they'll give you time to pay back in installments, and then if you don't pay back, the creditors, that's when they'll come to your door and know, and they'll want something equivalent to the value of the amount that you owed you. So that passage that we've just read, it's a similar incident happening, but unfortunately the debtor was already dead. So the creditors, they wanted to come and take the widow's 2 children into slavery and work off their father's debt. So by then, during the Mosaic time, during Moses' time, the creditors, they would enslave the debtors or the children to work off the debt when they could not pay. And that we can get it in Exodus 21 verse 2 to 4, and also if we read Deuteronomy 15 verse 12 to 18, we are not going to read that, but you can read that on your own. So the period of slavery, it would last until the year of Jubilee. But during that moment, the rich people or the creditors, they were not allowed to take advantage of the destitute. That's according to the 2 verses I've just given you a while ago. So the woman came to seek help from the man of God. She was crying. She was in need. She had a broken heart because there was something that had happened in her life. Of course, she had lost her husband, and she was yet to lose her sons into slavery. So she was really desperate, and she really knows where to turn to. That's the most important thing that we need to learn here. So she comes to the man of God at the lowest point of her life, and she's in desperate straits. Now she's about to lose her sons, as I've already said. She's over her head in debt, and she doesn't see how she's gonna make it. Despite all her problems, the 2 problems I've mentioned, she still held firm in the grip of faith. She needs help, but she does not turn to her family, and she doesn't turn to her neighbors, and she doesn't turn to her friends, because sometimes that's what we tend to do as human beings. When I've got a problem, I'll turn to my friend Daisy, and I'll start talking to Daisy to see if I can get help. But do I get the help that I need from Daisy? Yes, sometimes you do, but sometimes you don't. And sometimes I turn to my family and I start telling them I've got this problem. But here we are being told that this woman, she held firm in the grip of faith because she needed help, and she really knew, she knew where she had to turn to. She did not try to go to somebody to see if she can get more money to pay for the debt that the husband had left. So in her desperation, she turns to the man of God, Elisha. So the Bible tells us that Elisha was a God's messenger, and he was her best hope. He was the poor widow's best hope. She reminds Elisha that her husband did fear the Lord. Her life has been a life of devotion to the Lord, and in her trouble, she still trusts the Lord, and she turns to him for the things she needed. Despite her pain, she was still grieving because she had lost her husband, and and her problems and her lack of possibilities, she still looked up to God for help. Because sometimes when we are faced in such situations, I don't know whether we are in a confused situation or whatever, but we're just running around, we don't know what to do. But here we have been told this woman, she was in dire need, and she knew where to turn. She turned to the man of God. So that's a reminder to us this afternoon that whichever way, whatever circumstance we are facing, our best bet, our best hope is turn to the Lord, seek to the Lord in prayer, and the Lord will see you through. She still believed that God cared and she could do something about his situation. So she cried out to him in faith. That's another thing. She cried out to him in faith. This woman had so much faith in the Lord, knowing full well that the Lord was going to do something about his situation. Only God was the only way out. So trusting and believing in the Lord is what you and I need this afternoon in all our daily lives, for the Lord to see us through. At some point, all of us in this room, we are going to arrive at a point where we feel we are so low and you can't do anything. There will come a day when you reach the end of the rope, when you feel you've lost all hope and you feel there's nothing. You don't even see the light in the tunnel. You don't know where you're coming from and you don't know where you're going. And some have already been through it and they can testify about it. Because if I'm going to ask here in the room, some people have been through a lot and they'll be willing to testify what they've been through. Others, they are there right now and some are looking for some help. Others will arrive there at some day, but we all have our days of trials and trouble. If we go and read Job 14 verse 1, it's talking about our days, that our days are full of trouble. And if we read John 16 verse 33, it's telling us all about that. So what do we do if you are faced in such situations? When you reach that point, the world around you, your flesh, and the devil, they are all going to tell you that God doesn't see and that he doesn't care. But let me tell you this afternoon, the fact is, God does see. If we read Proverbs 13 verse 2, 2 Chronicles verse 16 and 9, he sees everything that you are facing. Right now, here, we might not know what you are facing, but God knows what you are facing. He knows everything that you are facing. And not a single thing is hidden from his view. And he does care. And we get all that from Hebrews 4 verse 15. And 1 Peter 5 verse 7, if I can paraphrase it, says, cast all your anxieties on him because he cares for you. So that's what we're being encouraged this afternoon, that we need to cast all our anxieties on him because he cares for us and he cares for you. So if you trust in the Lord, you believe in him that he can do wonders in your life, whatever the situation you're going through this afternoon, and you cast everything unto him. Then you just leave the problems unto him, and then you see the rest, and then you leave the rest to him, and then he will deal with it. But sometimes we don't go that route. We go our own way, and we want to do it our own way. So these verses I've mentioned, Hebrews 4 verse 14, 1 Peter 5 verse 7. These verses, they are designed to teach us about our problems. That while they may appear big in our eyes, but before God, these are just opportunities in disguise. Therefore, no matter what you are called on to face in this life, learn to turn to the Lord first for help. It would have been easy for Elisha when he was approached by, as we've seen during that skit, that Elisha would have just said, okay, my sister, You've suffered enough, just go home and let God take care. How many of us have heard those words before from a friend, or from your husband, or from a family member? You go there and you just to tell them your problem, and then they just tell you, God will take care of you. How many of us have heard that? Just go home. We'll pray for you. God will see you through. But in this case, we see that the Lord chose to involve the widow in her own miracle. Right, first we see that God erased her faith. God erased the faith of this woman by forcing her to admit that she did what she didn't have. Then God expanded her faith by teaching her to trust in Him, humility, and being obedient. Those three things. He does the very same things in your life and in my life today. If only we can trust the Lord. And if we humble ourselves before the Lord and we are being a bit obedient to Him. So how does God erase our faith in ourselves? Because I said God erased the faith in that woman. So how does God erase our faith in ourselves, in myself and in yourself? So if we look at the story that has been read from the Bible, 2 persons. This woman was made to see the size of her need and the smallness of her own resources. She needed everything. She had very little. She had that oil in a jar sitting somewhere in the cupboard. But she needed much because we have heard that the husband passed away and she's left dead for her to deal with. But she could not possibly meet her own needs. Often God will use our trials, our headaches, and our burdens of life to bring us to the place where we can honestly see our need and our own inability to meet it. Right. God is not trying to erase our faith. God is not trying to erase our faith in Him, but instead He's trying to erase our faith in ourselves so that we learn to trust Him more than trusting ourselves, saying, I can do this, I can do that. The moment we start to feel, I can do this, I can do that, without involving God, definitely the Lord is just going to let you be and let you deal with it. So this afternoon we are being told that we should learn to always trust in the Lord and not in ourselves, because on our own, without Him, we are nothing and we cannot do anything. So this is clearly, it's also there's a story in the Bible that we get from Joshua 7 verse 1 to 26 about the battle of Little Ai. I think we all know the story. We're not going to read the story because of the time. So Israel had just come off a great victory at Jericho, and they were feeling confident in their own abilities. They failed to look for help they needed. And that little village, that should have been an easy victory, it turned into a humiliating defeat. So when Israel got their priorities in order and put God first, they did put God first, they could enjoy the victory. That's Joshua 8 verse 1 to 29. After God erased her faith in herself, that is after God had erased the faith in this poor widow and her own abilities, He began the process of expanding her faith in the power of the Lord to meet her need. Again, He will do the same to your life and in my life today. That is only if we put our priorities right by seeking the Lord in prayer all the time. Whether we are faced in a different circumstance or whether everything is going well, we need to put our priorities right and always seek the Lord in prayer. Right. We go on to Elisha's second question. What do you have? So this question was designed to teach this widow that it may not have looked like she had much, but she already had everything she needed to obtain what she wanted. She couldn't see it, but God had already given her the very thing he would use to meet her need. And her answer to Elisha is to tell him that all she has is a pot of oil. And the word pot of oil refers to a flask. This oil probably was a small amount of anointing oil that was used by the prophets to anoint the men of God. The little flask of oil sat in the house unused since her husband died, so it was just there sitting in the cupboard, not being used. So that little insignificant flask of oil would have been the answer for her prayers. It was just sitting there in the cupboard without her knowing, but that little flask of oil tend to be the answer to her prayers. So God can use anything. He can use you, he can use me, he can use anything to satisfy your needs. So what we fail to realize is that God has already given us everything. Whilst we are all sitting here, we fail to realize that God has already given us everything we need in order to get our need met. If we'll see that widow said that the only thing value she had was the pot of oil. Yet you and I, we have so much than just a mere pot of oil. We have got so much that we can think of. If I'm just going to ask one by one, we've got so much, but sometimes we don't realize the value or the importance of it. Look at this woman, all she said she had, and all she said she had is just a pot of oil sitting in the cupboard, there. Right. God has promised to answer our prayers. And we get that from Matthew 7, verse 7, where it says, ask and it will be given, seek and you'll find, knock and it will be opened. And also God has promised us in Jeremiah 33, verse 3, that he's promised that he's going to hear our prayers. And he's also promised in Philippians 4, verse 19, that he's going to meet all our needs. We may look at our problems and they seem to be so large. And we look at our possessions, just like what Daisy has mentioned about you having got your Clio or whatever you've got, and you're looking down upon yourself thinking it's nothing. So sometimes we look at our possessions, and they seem so small. Yet we always fail to factor God into this equation. So he places us in a situation where our faith in him must be expanded. Now we see this widow is been told to go out there in the community and collect as many vessels as possible. And I would want to believe that's a strange command, like I'm just telling you, go out in the community and collect vessels and bring them. It's going to be strange and very, even the people out there, they wouldn't understand what you're trying and where you're coming from. So I could imagine when she's out there and the children collecting the vessels, if the neighbors are going to ask her what this is all about, probably she's just going to tell her that she's been asked by the men of God to collect the pots of to collect the empty vessels and bring them, and that the Lord is going to perform something, and that she's going to do something in her life. Or maybe she's just going to say, that crazy preacher told me to do this. Or she might say, don't ask me why, but I want to borrow some empty jars, pots and pans. Or maybe she's going to tell them, I'm broke, but God is about to meet my needs. But I don't know how he's going to do it. But the men of God said I should go and collect them. It may have been said that God used this woman to speak to her neighbors. They might have thought she had lost her mind when they saw her collecting, saying that she's going to collect those vessels. But what a witness it would have been when the Lord met her need. That was going to be a witness to the community when she's going out there, when she's got all the jars filled with oil, and she's just out there selling them and telling them that's what the Lord has done. When we are there in such situations when we talk about how we love God sometimes, when I'm reflecting about what the Lord had done to the woman, sometimes we just talk about God's love, but we don't actually show it in our lives. And then we reach a point where the Lord sends us into the valleys of life. And when we are there, that's when it comes for us in a big way. And that's going to be a testimony to people out there who will be looking at us or who will be seeing us. Right, we see the faith that was moved in that widow's house. She obeyed the Lord. That's when the man of God asked him to go and collect the vessel. She obeyed. She did not even question why she's going to do it and how she's going to do it. She just obeyed the Lord, went and collected the vessels, and she came in a room, shut the door behind herself. I just want to assume they had a prayer before they started, before the woman started pouring the oil in the jars. So you can imagine the scene in that room, all the vessels all around, and the woman and her 2 children. So she picks up the first jar, the empty jar, and then she pours the oil. And then she pours all the oil until all the jars were full, until the last one. So when she reaches the last one, that's when the oil finished. So, when she picked the first vessel and went and grabbed the oil in the cupboard, of course the sons didn't know exactly what was happening. I would want to think the boys would have asked maybe a question like, "Mom, what are you doing with that oil?" Because they could not understand what was going on. "Why did you ask us to borrow all these vessels?" They could have asked all those questions inside the room. But probably the mom would have said, "I don't have all the answers, but I believe the Lord is about to do something great in our home." The man of God said that we should get all the vessels. That's the mom telling the boys. We should get all the vessels that we can get our hands on, and God is going to fill each of them. Now this tells us how much faith this woman had. She had so much faith without even knowing exactly what was going to happen, how the oil was going to come into the flask and fill all the jars. But she had all the faith that the jars, because of the faith that she had, God is going to perform a miracle, and she was able to fill all the jars that they managed to borrow. So with that, they handed all the vessels and they all filled. And from this lesson, from all that happened in the room, we learned that God is powerful and God is able to meet our need. In as much as God was able to meet this woman's need, and so is also God able to meet our need. And that's very important in our lives today, if we get to understand that fact. Right, when we look at this woman, she started with nothing, just a small jar, and she ended up with everything. So there are times, or there are some experiences, let me say there are some experiences in the Bible whereby if we look at that woman, she really needed to trust the Lord, and she depended on the Lord. And there are also Bible passages in the Bible that shows us that the people of God, or the man of God, needed a total dependence on the Lord. If we look at the story of Elijah's experience in 2 Kings verse 17, if you think about Daniel, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, they also needed to depend so much on the Lord, upon the Lord. And if you look at Daniel 3, about the image of gold, when they were told to bow down for it and they refused. And if you also read about the widow of Zarephath, all these Bible texts or Bible verses, they shows us that We really needed to depend on the Lord. So one of the lessons that we learned from the Bible text I've been mentioning about the feeding of the 5,000, the Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, Elijah's experience, and Daniel and his friends that they experienced. One of the lessons that we can learn from this episode is that God will exactly do as he had promised. You see, when Daniel and his friends promised that they were not going to bow down, but their Lord is going to see them through. And that's what the Lord exactly did. So God, whatever God has promised that he's going to do, he will definitely do it. So we see Elisha promised that the Lord will fill the vessels, and he surely did fill the vessels. Not a single word in a single promise will fail to the ground unfulfilled. And it's Hebrews 6 verse 18, Matthew 5 verse 18, 24 and 35, and Psalms 138 verse 2. Right. The oil flowed until the vessels ran out. When the day was done, every vessel was filled to the full. There was no limit on the amount of the oil. The only limit was the amount of vessels God's provision knew. Right. God's provision knew no limits in the widow's case. And it shows no limits in your case as well. God is able to meet your need. Is also able to solve every problem that you are going through. His provision is limited by nothing but by our faith. God stands ready to give all that you make room for in your life, no more or no less. We can trust him to take care of us, and we can get our vessels under the flow of his oil. There's nothing he can't do, and that's Ephesians 3 verse 20. An illustration is told of two friends who went out fishing. They went out fishing, and one of the friends, when he caught a trout, he put a ruler and measured the trout. And if it was more than 8 inches, you just throw it back in the water. And then, so he kept all the small trouts to himself. So the friend was so concerned about it, and he said, I've never seen anyone fish like that. What were you trying to do? So he said, this was his answer. He said, sure I did. And the man said, because I only have an 8-inch pan. So every time when he caught a trout, you put the ruler, measure it, and if the trout is more than 8 inches, you throw it back in the river and keep the small one. So he kept the small one to himself. So the friend is asking me why he's doing that, why he's keeping that. So he said, because I only have an 8-inch frying pan. Now to think about it, that man could have just gone and get a bigger skillet so that he's not going to throw back the big fish in the water. So come to think of us right now, I believe God, He wants to give us a 12-inch blessings, but all we have is just an 8-inch faith. So that means we've got this faith, but God is willing to give us that faith. So all we need that faith in God. We need to trust, to have all our faith in God in order for God to provide us with the blessings that we deserve. I think in that way we limit our God when we've got that much faith. We tend to limit God depending on how much He wants to bless us. So when everything else is done, when the day was done and there was enough oil in the borrowed vessels for the woman, she managed to pay all her debts, and she also managed to have money to herself. So the same thing happens in our lives today. Whatever we ask in His name and we trust in His name, we humble ourselves and we are obedient before Him, is able to meet our desires and to supply all our needs. So this, and the woman was able to take care of himself after everything, after all the miracle, and after he had sold all the oil, he was able to look after herself and her children. So God's supply is far more than sufficient. That is the kind of our Father, that is the kind of ability our Father possesses. He's able to do more than you can imagine. If you can give him the opportunity this afternoon, he is able to provide all your needs and make all your wants. Now it's a call to everyone that let's get all our vessels to God and watch him fill them all, and you'll be amazed at what he can do with us. Amen.
Amen.